here we are at the Neahtawanta Inn. In many ways, this is Title Track's place of origin because our parent organization, the Neahtawanta Research and Education Center, was born here on summer solstice 1987. And then they passed the torch to us. And so I just thought we could talk a little bit as co-executive directors, all of us sharing leadership with Title Track, just a little bit about how our personal story and our sense of purpose led us to our involvement with Title Track.
I'm kind of trying to figure out where to start, but for me, I've always been someone who has a fear of missing out, so I tried to do as many things as possible when I was a kid. And I learned musical instruments, things to get me in orchestra, anything I possibly could. And I was just like, well, that was cool. And there are a certain number of instruments that I stayed with, and one that I taught myself in. And I had a community of people at the university I went to, and I just started to love music and community. And I started to write, and I realized that there was a really great camaraderie with people who wrote, and the instance of everyone going, well, let's do something together. Let's write something together. We should record each other, and then see what shows are out there. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And so about 10 years ago this year, I released my first album, and this is when I didn't want to go on tour with it. I just wanted to have some art out there that I was working on for all of my years. And as a result of that, I wanted to do more for the community because I knew how long it took me to do this project. So I just started meeting musicians and doing things with them, and I was like, this is an amazing, community of people that we have here. And I just kept going with it, and people kept going, we love you. Why don't you just hang out with us here? Why don't you participate in these things here? And I'm like, that's nice, but what can we do for the greater body of people who are contributing so much to our community in their art? And they're kind of like, thanks for the show, and everyone goes home. And actually, during one of those instances, I actually met Seth, which is kind of cool. I had known about Seth, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I know Seth. I mean, it's really awesome. He was like, oh, hey, Jenny. And I'm like, you know my name? I didn't know you knew my name. And I think that was the first time that I met you at the Arc, actually. And then fast forward to, 2018 or 2017, I was at Harvest Gathering. And it was a show I was doing with a band, and I just started listening to you, and we started talking, and I kind of planted a seed. And then I think it was late 18, we started having conversations about things that you were talking about and thinking about. And I was like, this kind of encompasses all these things that I like to just pull together, which is community, music, and impacting people in a way that everyone can kind of be familiar with. It's a language that everyone speaks. But I was engaged kind of in a different way in my background. So I really loved the admin side of things just in my career. And I remember just being, asked in that way. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's plenty of things I can kind of think of. But when you asked me about, being a part of this, it never occurred to me that I would actually engage in equity practices, that I would be able to engage in, clean water initiatives. It was always a matter of how can we collaborate within community to do, to do good things for others? That's kind of all it was about for me at the beginning. And then I'm kind of seeing a whole lot more within the Northern Michigan community, which is I still have not met everyone. I don't think I'll meet everyone. I probably just won't. But it's such an amazing thing to know all of the possibilities and all the people, that there are so many good people who have this energy to help other people thrive. That's just meant a lot to me. So in contributing to this organization, it just kind of made sense for me. It really clicked with me, that I could continue to impact in terms of creative practice. but also for so many of us who, just want connecting points. They just want things to kind of click and make sense. And in that, we get to help and serve others.
You do it so well.
She does.
How about you,
Thanks,
Holly?
Well, I was part of the founding board. Seth, I'd been working with Standing Rock and the water, or the collective on water issues, and Seth approached me to possibly be on the board of this new organization he was making, and I was sort of like, aren't you a musician? Like, what do you want with me? But the more he talked about it, the clearer it was, and I was like, oh wow, this sounds really exciting. I didn't know how you were going to pull it off. And it seemed like a really diverse mission, and using creative practice to, like, for clean water and equity and children. I'm like, wow, that's a tall order. It's a lot of stuff. How are you going to do that? And so I got to watch the first year, like, watching that happen, and I said, wow, I've had all of this in my life already for forever, whether I was working in the arts, being an artist. Of course, I have a degree in art as well as in the law, and working with children. I've worked with children my whole life, whether it was representing children or teaching children, just loving them in general, that they're magical, sacred beings. And then, of course, with the racial equity, being an Indigenous person, that's something I just was born, being interested in, seeing what happened, what's happened around me and within my communities, and in particular my own people, how we suffer injustices within the current sort of white supremacy of the United States. So having racial equity was a hugely important thing for me personally, and for the people in my community. And I think, like Jenny talked about, having that capacity and that willingness and desire to help people. My mother was a helper too, and had always taught me that public service was like the highest good. That was the best thing you could do. And I think that I've lived a lot of my life doing that anyway. Even going to law was to help my community. And being an artist, I loved art, but I felt like I wasn't helping people as I was doing my art. So when all of this happened, I was really curious to see what would happen, but then it shaped it, and I was like, wow, this is so kismet. They're like, how wonderful is this? And of course, I think everything meshed together, and that's how we became part of a team, and how my purpose in life and the things that make me tick sort of joined in with the mission of this organization. It was just meant to be. How about you?
Yeah, collaborating with people that I am inspired by and respect, and being in a community where people are given the opportunity to use their gifts in concert with other folks who have complementary gifts is, to me, it's like some of the most rewarding experiences that I've had in life. And so I think that title track really is kind of an embodiment of that. And it's also like an ongoing practice for us to be in collaboration and in communication, moving things forward. And I think that one of the things that has kind of come into more focus for me as an adult in like this season of my life is how important it is for the process to sort of mirror the desired outcome. So for us to be using practices and protocols that are healing and that are about collective liberation and that are intentional, not just delivering programming that is really meaningful and impactful. Obviously, that's the most important thing for us to do work that's mission driven. But internally, for us to be having meetings and to be doing trainings ourselves is really important. And like it's very meaningful to be working with folks who also feel the same way. to be with people who all have a heart to serve and truly have cultivated powerful tools and gifts to put to use and apply to work for the common good, but are also all about like having the process be as dialed in as the product. Yeah. When I was a kid, my parents, they really tried to impress upon me a sense of environmental understanding and social responsibility. And I remember when Captain Planet came out, and my parents were stoked. They were like, "Oh, this show, I'm so glad you're watching this show. It's people using their talents. They're using their superpowers to do amazing work." And it really feels like Captain Planet at Title Track. It feels like people are bringing their superpower in, and what we can do as a whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Always use your powers for good, never for bad.
That's right.
Yes, combine our powers to heal. And it's fun too. Like we have a lot of fun together, and I think that's another thing, just that I've learned in this season of my life, is how important it is for us to be able to sustain our vitality and our well-being, and to be able to stay in the work absolutely necessitates that. I think all of us have experienced burnout before, and so we hopefully have learned from that. I know I have. And I am excited to work with people who know how to laugh and know how to come up with really great check-in questions.